fading canvas. Sofia Martinez traced her finger along the dust-coated lens of her old Nikon camera. 3 years had passed since she'd last used it. 3 years since she'd packed away her dreams of becoming a professional photographer. The camera sat in her hands like a time capsule from a different life. Outside the window of their Victorian home in Savannah, Georgia, Spanish moss swayed from ancient oak trees, framing a scene she would have once found irresistible. Now, she merely observed it with a hollow ache in her chest. "I'll be working late again," Daniel's voice came from behind her, startling her from her reverie. Her husband of 8 years stood in the doorway, his tailored suit and perfectly combed dark hair a stark contrast to her disheveled appearance in worn jeans and an oversized sweater. "Again?" Sofia asked, though she already knew the answer. Daniel's architecture firm was handling a major downtown development project, and for the past 6 months, their home had felt more like a hotel where they occasionally crossed paths. "The Cooper project deadline got moved up. I don't have a choice," he said, his eyes not quite meeting hers. "There's leftover pasta in the fridge from yesterday." Sofia nodded, watching as he checked his watch, a gesture that had become as predictable as the growing distance between them. There was a time when Daniel would notice everything about her. A new haircut, the sadness behind her smile, the longing in her eyes. Now, he didn't even notice the camera in her hands, the one that he had given her on their first anniversary. After he left, the house fell into a familiar silence. Sofia wandered through rooms that felt too large, too empty. Photographs from happier times adorned the walls. Their honeymoon in Italy, hiking in Colorado, sailing off the Georgia coast. In each picture, their smiles were genuine, their bodies angled toward each other, like magnets naturally finding their pair. When had they started drifting apart? Was it when Daniel made partner? When she lost her teaching position at the Art Institute? Or had it happened so gradually that neither of them noticed until the chasm between them became too wide to cross? On impulse, Sofia dusted off her camera, replaced the battery, and stepped outside. The late afternoon sunlight filtered through the trees, creating dappled patterns on the cobblestone streets. She began taking pictures, hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence as muscle memory took over. For 2 hours, she wandered through Forsyth Park, capturing the fountain, children playing, couples walking hand in hand. For the first time in months, she felt a flicker of something like joy. A week later, Sofia found herself standing outside Illumination's gallery, clutching a portfolio of her best recent photographs. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she pushed open the door, a small bell announcing her arrival. "I'll be right with you," called a voice from the back room. Sofia studied the exhibited photographs, landscapes, portraits, abstract compositions, all displayed with careful lighting that enhanced their impact. This was exactly the kind of place she had once dreamed of featuring her own work. "Sorry about that. How can I help you?" She turned to find a man about her age with warm hazel eyes and an easy smile. His navy blue button-down was rolled at the sleeves, revealing forearms marked with colorful tattoos, swirls of blues and greens that resembled ocean waves. "I'm Ethan Brooks, the owner," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Sofia Martinez. She hesitated, suddenly feeling foolish. "I took some photographs, and I was wondering if you might look at them. For feedback," she added quickly. "I'm not expecting anything." Ethan's smile widened. "I'd be happy to." He gestured toward a small table near the window. "Let's take a look." As he flipped through her portfolio, Sofia studied his face, searching for any reaction. His expression remained neutral, professional, until he reached a black and white photograph of an elderly couple on a park bench, their weathered hands intertwined. "This is extraordinary," he said softly. "You've captured something rare here. Decades of history in a single touch." Their conversation flowed easily after that, stretching from minutes into hours, as they discussed composition, lighting, emotional resonance. When Sophia finally glanced at her watch, she was shocked to find it was nearly 7 o'clock. "I should go," she said, gathering her portfolio. "Before you do," Ethan said, "I'd like to feature this piece in our upcoming exhibition on human connection, if you're interested." Sophia felt something unfamiliar bloom in her chest. Possibility, perhaps, or dangerous hope. "I'd like that," she said, and for the first time in years, her smile reached her eyes.
The cell door shimmered and dissolved, startling Elias from his restless sleep. He blinked against the sudden brightness as a slender figure stepped through. "You will follow." "Me," said a melodic voice. Elias rose cautiously, taking in his visitor. Unlike the armored soldiers, she wore flowing robes of deep indigo that complemented her pale purple skin. Her hair, a darker violet shade, was intricately braided with small crystalline beads that caught the light with every movement. But it was her eyes that captured his attention, large, almond-shaped, with vertical pupils swimming in irises the color of twilight. "Princess Lyra," he said quietly. Recognizing her from intelligence briefings, the daughter of Empress Sarati and heir to the Novari throne, her eyes widened slightly. "You know who I am?" "We make it our business to know the leadership of those we seek diplomatic relations with," Elias replied. Maintaining a respectful distance, Lyra studied him with unconcealed curiosity. "Interesting. We were told humans were ignorant of galactic politics." She gestured to the doorway. "Come, my mother has granted me permission to question you before your trial." They walked through corridors that grew increasingly ornate, crystal lattice intertwining with the metal framework of the ship. Guards stationed at every intersection bowed deeply as Lyra passed. "Your trial is tomorrow," she said as they entered what appeared to be private quarters. "The council has already decided your guilt." "Without evidence? Without defense?" Elias asked, keeping his voice level despite his rising concern. Lyra turned to him, her expression unreadable. "Evidence is unnecessary when dealing with lesser species. Your presence in our territory is enough." "We were invited to the neutral zone for peace talks," Elias said firmly. "By Counselor Navan." A flash of surprise crossed Lyra's features before she controlled it. "Counselor Navan would never authorize such a meeting without my mother's approval." "Perhaps you should ask him," Elias suggested. Before executing a diplomatic envoy and triggering an interplanetary incident, Lyra approached him, close enough that he could smell the faint scent of something like jasmine emanating from her. "You speak boldly for someone in chains. Chains can restrict the body." "Princess, but not the truth." Her lips curved into the slightest smile. "Interesting perspective." She circled him slowly. "You're not what I expected," Elias read. "And what did you expect?" "Cowering. Begging." The typical response when faced with execution. She stopped before him. "Yet here you stand, discussing diplomatic protocols, as if we were at a formal reception." Elias met her gaze steadily. "Fear serves no purpose. If I am to die, I'll do so with dignity." Representing Earth to my last breath, something shifted in Lyra's expression, respect, perhaps, or curiosity. She raised one hand, her 5 slender fingers hovering near his face, but not touching. "There are whispers among some of us," she said softly, "that humans are more than the primitive creatures our histories describe. That perhaps we have been ... misinformed." "Perhaps you should discover the truth for yourself," Elias replied, rather than relying on ancient prejudices. Lyra lowered her hand. "Tomorrow, you face the council. Few survive such an audience." She turned away. "Rest tonight, Ambassador. You'll need your strength and your words." As guards escorted him back to his cell, Elias replayed their conversation. In Princess Lyra, he had found something unexpected. Doubt. And doubt, however small, might be the opening he needed. The Novari High Council chamber loomed vast and imposing, a cathedral of crystal and light. 7 elevated thrones formed a semicircle before Elias, who stood unbound but surrounded by guards. Above the central throne, largest and most ornate, hovered a three-dimensional projection of the Novari homeworld. Empress. Sarati regarded him coldly from this central position, unlike her daughter, whose beauty was delicate. The Empress was imposing, tall and regal, with sharper features and eyes that seemed to pierce through flesh to bone. Her skin was a deeper purple, marked with faint luminescent patterns that signified her royal lineage. Elias read of Earth, her voice resonated. Through the chamber, without apparent amplification, you stand accused of espionage, unauthorized entry into Novari space, and attempted sabotage of Imperial security. The counselors flanking her three male, all wearing elaborate ceremonial armor, nodded in unison. Elias stood straight, projecting a calm he didn't entirely feel. In the gallery above, he glimpsed Princess Lyra, watching intently. Empress Sarati. "Honorable counselors," he began, his voice clear and steady. "I reject these charges. I came as a diplomatic envoy at the invitation of your own government." A ripple of murmurs spread through the chamber. "Lies," hissed an elderly counselor with deep-set eyes. "No such invitation was extended." "Counselor Navan arranged the meeting," Elias continued. "Our communications are documented and were transmitted with official Novari diplomatic codes." All eyes turned to a younger male counselor who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Navan," the Empress asked, her tone dangerous. "Is this true?" "Majesty," Navan began, then straightened. "Yes. I arranged an exploratory dialogue. Not as conspiracy, but as necessity. Our expansion brings us into increasing contact with humans. War benefits neither side. Treason," shouted another counselor. "Unauthorized negotiation with inferiors?" Empress Sarati raised her hand, silencing the outburst. Ambassador read, "Regardless of how you came to be here, the fact remains that humans represent a threat to our expansion. Your species is volatile, unpredictable, rapidly advancing in technology that could one day challenge us. And is that the real fear?" Elias asked, taking a step forward despite the guards tensing around him. "Not that we're primitive, but that we might one day be your equals?" The chamber fell silent. "You speak of equality," Sarati said coldly. "Yet your species destroys its own world, wages constant war among yourselves, and ventures into space, trailing centuries of violence and division." "We are flawed," Elias acknowledged. "We have made terrible mistakes, but we learn from them, we grow. Can the Novari Empire claim the same perfection it demands of others?" He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of each counselor in turn. "Your histories speak of the Great Purge, when the early Novari eradicated an entire sentient species that shared your homeworld. Your expansion has absorbed 12 worlds where indigenous civilizations mysteriously disappeared. Are these the actions of a superior species?" The guards stepped forward, weapons raising, but Empress Sarati gestured them back. Her eyes narrowed on Elias. "You would dare lecture us on morality while standing for judgment?" she asked, her voice dangerously soft. "I stand here offering truth," Elias replied. "And the truth is that humans and Novari are more alike than different. We have both committed terrible acts and achieved wondrous things. The difference is that we recognize our capacity for both and choose to strive for better." In the gallery, Princess Lyra leaned forward, her expression unreadable but intent. "Impressive words," Sarati said after a long silence. "But words change nothing. Words," Elias countered, "are where all change begins." 3 days had passed since the trial, and Elias found himself not in an execution chamber, but in a strange limbo. Relocated to a suite of rooms in the diplomatic wing, he remained a prisoner in all but name. The guards outside his door were ever present, but the restraints were gone, replaced by an electronic bracelet that tracked his movements. Evening brought an unexpected visitor. The door slid open silently, and Princess Lyra stepped through, dismissing the guards with a gesture. "You've caused quite the disruption, Ambassador Reed," she said. Moving to the viewport that overlooked the vastness of space, "The Council has been in continuous session since your testimony." Elias joined her, maintaining a respectful distance. "Is that good or bad for my prospects of survival?" A smile touched her lips. Uncertain. But the fact that you're still alive suggests your words found purchase? She turned to face him. You spoke of things not discussed openly in the Empire. Ancient shames, buried truths. Information is a diplomat's best weapon, Elias replied, though I admit I wasn't certain how much was accurate. More than you might imagine. Lyra's violet eyes studied him intently. How did you know about the Great Purge? Our official histories mention nothing of it. Archaeological data from one of your former colonies. A research team found evidence of another sentient species that disappeared suddenly around the time Novari settlement began. We pieced together the rest from fragments. Lyra moved closer, the scent of jasmine surrounding her. My mother is... conflicted. Your execution would be simplest. But Counselor Navan and others argue it would only validate your claims of our barbarism. And what do you think, Princess? Elias asked softly. Her eyes met his. I think you are either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Perhaps both. Her hand rose hesitantly, then gently touched his cheek. I've been studying your species since you arrived. So similar to us in form, yet so different in perspective. The touch of her fingers sent an unexpected warmth through him. Different perspectives can complement each other, he said, voice low. Together, they create a more complete picture. Is that what you envision? Novari and humans together? There was something vulnerable in her question. I believe it's possible, he answered honestly. Better than endless suspicion and eventual war? Lyra stepped closer still. The space between them charged with something neither had anticipated. You risk everything with such dreams, Elias read. Some things are worth the risk. When her lips met his, it was gentle, exploratory, the meeting of two worlds. Her skin felt cool against his, her violet eyes closing as the kiss deepened. For a moment, politics and danger faded away, leaving only connection. She pulled back first, eyes wide with surprise at her own actions. This is... unprecedented. Elias smiled softly. The best beginnings often are. I must go, she whispered, composing herself. But know this, your words have not fallen on deaf ears. There are many, especially among the younger generation, who question our path of endless conquest. A rebellion? Elias asked, concerned. Awakening, she corrected. Change comes slowly to the Novari, but when it comes, ... double quotes. She left the thought unfinished.
How?
Brushing her fingers against his once more before turning to leave. As the door closed behind her, Elias turned back to the viewport, watching distant stars. Something had shifted, not just between him and Lyra, but perhaps within the Empire itself. Seeds of doubt had been planted. Whether they would grow into understanding or be crushed beneath the weight of tradition remained to be seen. But for the first time since his capture, Elias felt hope flicker to life. The Grand Assembly Hall of the Novari flagship buzzed with tension. Every member of the council was present, along with ship commanders and colonial governors attending via holographic projection. Elias stood at the center, no longer a prisoner but not quite free, with Princess Lyra at his side. Empress Sarati rose from her throne, silencing the murmurs. For 12 cycles, we have deliberated, she announced, her powerful voice reaching every corner of the vast chamber. We have examined evidence, consulted histories, and debated implications. Her gaze fell on Elias, sharp, but no longer hostile. Elias Reed came to us as an enemy, according to our traditions. Yet his words forced us to confront truths long buried. The Empress descended the steps from her throne, an unprecedented action that sent ripples of shock through the assembly. The Novari Empire has existed for millennia on the principle that strength determines right. That conquest is our destiny, she continued. This human challenged that belief not with weapons, but with words. Not with threats, but with truth. She stopped before Elias, studying him with those piercing eyes. We have made a decision. Elias felt Lyra's hand brush against his briefly, a small gesture of reassurance. The human Elias Reed will be appointed as Earth's official ambassador to the Novari Empire, Sarati declared. Furthermore, We will establish diplomatic relations with Earth as equals, not subjects. Gasps and murmurs erupted throughout the hall. Sarati raised her hand for silence. This is not weakness, she said firmly. It is evolution. As Ambassador Reed reminded us, even the Novari were once a young species, making terrible mistakes. Perhaps it is time we remembered how to grow beyond our past. The elderly counselor who had called for Ilias's execution rose shakily to his feet. Empress, this breaks thousands of years of tradition. Traditions that have led us to stagnation, countered Counselor Navan. Our expansion slows. Our culture calcifies. Perhaps new perspectives are exactly what we need. Princess Lyra stepped forward. Mother, with your permission, I request appointment as liaison to Earth, to learn from humans as they learn from us. Sarati's expression softened, almost imperceptibly, as she looked at her daughter. Granted. You will accompany Ambassador Reed when he returns to Earth to formalize our new relationship. As the assembly dissolved into excited discussion, Lyra turned to Elias, her eyes bright. You did it, she whispered. You changed an empire with nothing but words. Not just my words, he replied, taking her hand openly now, but the truth they contained and your courage in listening. He looked around at the transformed council. This is only the beginning. A beginning, she agreed, her fingers intertwining with his that neither of our worlds could have imagined. Later, as their ship prepared to depart for Earth, Elias stood with Lyra on the observation deck. The Novari flagship grew smaller against the backdrop of stars as they pulled away. Are you nervous? He asked, watching her profile as she gazed at her home receding in the distance. Terrified, she admitted with a smile, but excited too. No Novari royal has ever set foot on Earth. You'll be making history, Elias said. We both will. She turned to him, her violet eyes reflecting the starlight. When I first met you, I thought you were either very brave or very foolish to stand against the Empire. And now? Now I think perhaps bravery and foolishness are sometimes the same thing. Her hand found his again. It takes both to change worlds, as Earth appeared as a blue dot in the view screen before them. Elias reflected on how much had changed in so short a time. One capture, one trial, one moment of defiant truth-telling had altered the course of two civilizations. A new dawn, Lyra murmured, as if reading his thoughts. For both our worlds, Elias agreed. As their ship carried them toward home in an unexpected future neither could have imagined,